Thanks to everyone that watched the video last week and especially anyone that chimed in. It's appreciated. A couple people in there I was especially pleased to see. Looking forward to reconnecting with many of you. A question popped up in there that had popped up earlier this month when I had made public a few videos about things we carry around and why. The question was about some numbers that I have tattooed on me, 112. The question was, were they random? Definitely not. I knew that wasn't really the question, but it was a good way to phrase it. The same question has popped up 5 or 6 times, and I haven't addressed it. The previous addressment of this was on one of the Instagrams that got taken. And it's certainly not my favorite story to tell, but a valuable one, I believe, and if you've got the patience for it, it'll lead you to understanding why the 112 is significant and why it remains significant, even maybe more so. During the pandemic for profit, I did not take any time off, and I was very hesitant to, but after it had been going on for a year or so, towards the fall, I think it was 21 or something, that's kind of blurry, I decided to go down to Pennsylvania for a shooting course. People that we know were hosting, and it was at a newer range, had accommodations on site. I was really excited about it. So I drove down there on a Friday, and the place was phenomenal. It was still a work in progress. The accommodations were, I think, maybe an old youth camp or something. They were transitioning into some hotel style places for people taking courses there. They weren't done yet, so they were fine. However, there were no locks or anything, so I was graciously checked out the facility, brought all my things back with me, and went and ate down in the little tiny town, the worst steak I've ever had. And I was driving back towards the range. The pin probably didn't maybe have a driveway yet or something. It was again a pretty new facility. And so I was going really slow down a very, very rural, very dark street. And car pulled up behind me, truck was driving behind me. It's not strange, cars drive on streets. And so I slowed down to let them pass. I didn't know where I was going. As it turns out, that was not in any way their goal. As I slowed down, they slowed down too, and were kind of playing the little lights game, and then pulled up next to me, shouting things out the window. It was during the protests, and there's no protests here, F word, whatever, and I'm thinking, holy cow, like what is happening? I'm in a spray painted black Jeep with New York plates. Like what? This is a strange choice. Afterwards, I talked to some people and some of the people that were involved with the course that I was meant to go to, and there was some pretty strong signals that had been something that happened again. People targeting people going to those places because they know they have, I don't know, valuable things in the car. So I stayed pulled over. I didn't know where I was going. The road was dark. In hindsight, maybe I would have tried to drive off. Maybe I wouldn't have, but I didn't. And in that time, they kind of pulled up and turned in a little bit, and I was kind of just still confused what the hell was happening. I've been messed with quite a bit in my life, but this was really, really random. And again, hindsight being what it is, I'm not really sure if I would do exactly the same thing. But I stayed in the car until somebody got out. The driver got out and started coming around to make a fuss, and started yelling at me through the window and all this stuff. And so I got out of the car. They were wantonly antagonistic. There was no purpose to it. I hadn't done anything. I wasn't in their way or anything. They were just looking for trouble. And as soon as the driver had come around to the passenger side, there was also a passenger. So, something that strikes me is probably not for people that have been in war and things, of course, where fighting and violence is very, very long and terrible, terrifying, must be, Jesus, is how much longer it takes to tell stories of like street-related violence than it actually takes for it to occur. I mean, this entire thing that I'm talking through is 10 minutes, less than 10 minutes, maybe 10 minutes with me leaving the scene. these two guys are intent on harming me, robbing me. I'm not really sure. Yelling all this kind of stuff, calling me every manner of everything, and I'm going, okay. I'm going, look, I'm just trying to whatever, and I'm good at diffusing things. I've been in a lot of physical trouble, but I'm not antagonistic outside of a very, very short amount of circumstances. And I had no interest in it here. I was taking a tiny break for the first time in quite a long time. That time in our business and in the world was terrible, especially if you were choosing to not bend the knee. So we started fighting. They weren't taking no for an answer, and I started fighting with them. They were big. They were both big. They had camouflage. One of them had camouflage on. One of them had kind of like a partial face mask. I don't know, some stuff. But no one is good at fighting more than one person. Anyone that says they are is not. I'm not a professional fighter. I've trained and fought a lot, but my goodness, that is nothing anyone wants any part of. So I'm getting hit, jumping out of the car cold after 4 hours, and kicking people as hard as I possibly can was definitely not on my bingo card for the night, and it was definitely not good for my already broken down body. And so the one guy I was able to hurt and cut with my arm, my elbow, and put on the ground, and the other guy was kind of hitting me, and we were kind of wrestling around a little bit, and when it started looking like it might go sideways is when it actually did. And this motherfucker gets out of the back of the car, the back second door of the truck. So there's 3 people. At that point, I was like, I'm definitely not dying on this stupid street in Pennsylvania. And that's kind of what I felt like. I've been in hot water before, and I've never been like, this is it. And this felt like it. I was getting hit. My head was cut. My ribs were definitely hurt. My leg was hurting badly from kicking these people as hard as I possibly could, which is pretty fucking hard. And when the third guy got out of the truck, I defaulted to training. I took a knife out. I used it on the 2 people remaining there, and that quieted it down. And I put the knife in the tire of the truck, made sure I hadn't left anything on the ground, and drove off. As it turns out, it was a long, dark road, and if I had sprinted out of there, I probably would have crashed. It was at least a mile. I went up and turned right, went into I think it was the back of a church or something, and set some things on fire in the dumpster, cleaned myself up a little bit, took a few minutes to compose myself, and drove directly back to New York. Did not of course attend the training. And the reason that this story becomes so relevant and so, I guess, powerful for me is I was in Pennsylvania. I was carrying different things than I would usually be carrying if I were in New York. And prior to going to dinner, I had thought that out, and I was saying, okay, if this was New York, I would have this stuff, but it isn't, so I'm gonna take this stuff instead. The switch that I had made my friend Johnny Primo made a signature knife with a company called Milmac from Arizona, a fine man named Justin, and I had transitioned to that as what I was going to carry around for that night. That is a well-engineered, scary little knife with a great handle, and what I was holding on to before was different because I would have had something else with me in New York and whatever. In my opinion, in my experience, limited in this case, but not in training circumstances, if I had not switched to what I had switched to, I would have been far worse hurt than I already was, and I was already hurt. I mean, I got hit in the head hard. I don't need to get hit in the head anymore. Like I said, my ribs were bruised. I was cut quite badly, and if I had had a substandard tool, or if I had not drilled what I had been doing there ad nauseum, there is no chance that that would have gone even as well as did. Well is not how I would like to put that, but it would not have gone in my favor in any way had I been clumsy, had I been hesitant, had the tool been wrong, and any of those things. The whole circumstances would have changed, and there's, I mean, I would be either telling a very different story right now or not telling one at all, in my opinion, in my reflection. So the obsessiveness, the little bit of neuroses of tool consideration is always on my mind, and has always been on my mind, even since I was a kid. But it stays on my mind, and this is one of the reasons it does. And the other thing that is constantly on my mind is there is no such thing as time wasted training. I have never once said, I wish I hadn't practiced this as much as I had. I've never said that. And that's one thing. I'm always practicing that kind of stuff. Where do you put it? How do you get it out? What does it do? What does it actually do versus what do you think it does? There's fact and fiction and everything. And when it comes to training, when it comes to, especially, when it comes to weapons or actually the potential of needing to use them, there can't be a lot of fiction there. So, again, gigantic thank you to those two people for collaborating on a tremendous tool that definitely saved me. The 112 that was referred to in the comment and that I have tattooed on me is the number of that blade, and what it signifies to me is a phrase we've used many years, and that I've explained a lot of different ways, and I may try and repopulate some of those, but it is never, nothing. Never, nothing. So the 112 is a simple personal reminder to me of the fact that there is no such thing as time wasted in training, especially with things that can save you or not save you. It was a very long and a very short drive back to New York all at the same time. The reason I chose to get that in particular tattooed is to remind me that even when I don't want to, even if I have 10 minutes, even if I'm hurting, anything like that, there's always something that I can do. And even from a much simpler, less dangerous physical realm, I've been banged up my whole life. I've been riding BMX since I was 11. I started training martial arts and did that as long and hard as I possibly could, as many days of the week as was possible. And I've been banged up a long time. And so I've always felt like I had a relatively short leash. I had to learn, I had to practice. I wanted to do everything I could before my body simply just said no way. And so I've never really taken much for granted in terms of training. Anyone that's ever known me or trained with me or alongside me or anything knows that. I don't cut corners in those realms, and I don't skip steps. And so the 112 equating to never nothing simply to me was a great visual reminder every day I stood in the mirror for a second that I have to do something to keep myself and others safe. And I guess extrapolating that a little bit forward, there was a period of time relatively recently that I wasn't honoring that for myself, and it felt worse than anything. At a time when I was at my absolute worst by a long shot, and any other difficulties I've ever been through, and I've been through some. Felt like child's play compared to where I've been for the last several years. And so one of the things that even started putting the tiny pieces of the puzzle back was that type of thing. Just doing simple repetitive stuff that you knew needed to be done in order to make sure that perishable skill did not actually die. And I mean, and it's not always pretty. It's not always glamorous. Our friend Adam and my brother came into the gym a few times while I was in a state that there's no chance I ever should have been in, probably hadn't slept in however long and whatever else. And I was just, shooting the recurve bow and practicing reloads or whatever I was doing in probably in shorts. And so even then, that level of dedication to something, a craft, a practice, expertise, whatever the case is. It really, really helped me at least put a tiny piece of myself back to a puzzle that I couldn't figure out. So the 112 initially meant the same thing it does now, but it really, really started to be impactful when the chips were down, and helped me kind of drag back up. And yeah, and I certainly appreciate anyone that's ever contributed to that notion. I have a lot of obsessive friends, and the people that I know, and even most specifically my instructors in California, never let a stone go unturned. We would always seek out and fix and find whatever we possibly could. Vet it. If we liked it, we kept it. If we didn't, we kicked it. And I've always thought that was kind of a massively valuable concept to take with me everywhere, and at least instill in as many people as we can. The aftermath of that was rough. I didn't exactly know how to handle that. I've been in a lot of physical trouble. I've never had anything like that, and the uncertainty of a lot of things. What was the uncertainty of all of it was bad. I didn't know what was happening with those two people. I still don't. I contacted some people that were doing the course afterwards. We talked through it. Someone from that area went out and took a look, and there was, of course, evidence of what had happened, but nothing like of me. And you know, after I drove back to New York, my mind was not right at all. A huge mistake I made during that time was when I got back to New York. Someone who I care about greatly wanted to help me, and my mind was wrong, and I just wanted to like isolate and hide and just, you know, I don't know. I'm not sure what it was. I felt like, gosh, I had tried to take one fucking day to kind of clear my head a little bit after really a terrible, terrible year. And I mean, you know, we don't have to get into this here, but having a gym that chose not to close during that situation here in New York was not easy at all. We got fucked with constantly. So I was raw. I was already having a rough time, and I made a mistake. I certainly should have brought someone alongside then, especially someone that wanted nothing more than to help me with that. I went home, didn't sleep. Probably watched the movie Hot Fuzz 2 or 3 times, and all I knew to do was teach class the next morning. So I drove back Friday night, and taught class at 10 a.m. on Saturday morning. They weren't expecting me, of course, and no one was expecting me in the state that I was in, but it felt like the right choice. I still don't know if that was the right choice, but being in a place that at least felt somewhat comfortable after a situation that was the absolute not in any way fun or romantic or anything like that felt at least important. Losing my mind would have been a really easy thing to do right then, and I'd already been pretty close to that for a long time. So that's the short version of the 112. Never nothing. We've said that so many times. So many people that I know have adopted that concept and really kind of digested it and have improved tremendously inside it. And I want to say thank you for that too. But this is the long version of the short story of no, 112 is not a random number. And this is why it is, and this is what it is. Thank you for listening. Happy to answer questions on this one. This would be better not as a live. I decided to just do it as a regular video because people ask questions during these things and I get distracted. I don't want to leave much out here because it's a really weird thing. I don't want to make it in any way like lighter or anything. So, all right. If this is interesting, thank you. If it's not, you skip to the last 30 seconds. But never take for granted the time you have to train, because if you're actually serious about it, you never know when you're going to need it the most. All right, then. We'll see you soon.